Welcome to Travel Buddy, presented by Switchfly. In this podcast, we talk about all things travel, rewards, and loyalty. Let's get to it. James and Ian, welcome again to the Travel Buddy podcast. This is episode 5, and today we're going to talk about travel rewards influencing, transforming, revolutionizing employee recognition. So, if you're not familiar with this space, it is a lot of different ways to recognize employees, different incentives. There's perks, there's wellness, there's your standard benefits like medical, dental, insurance. There's non-cash incentives, there's experiences, and all that's rolled up into EX, employee experience. So, travel is a very interesting and novel way to approach and enhance the employee experience. But I want to get a little bit of the lay of the land. What is the driving motive that companies are trying to improve that employee experience? Like, what's the logic there, and then how is travel a really great way to do that? I think that's a good place to start. So, James, I'll start with you. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is change, right? We all have been kind of on the roller coaster of the 2020s. And one of the big changes is, the majority of boomers are retired and millennials now make up the bulk of the workforce. And with that, there's just a different set of goals, aspirations, and expectations.
Mm.
Uh, Millennials, still over 60% surveyed by Deloitte in 2023, said that work was a big part of their identity. But how that work happened or when that work happens, excuse me, and where, are all subject to change. And with that, the benefits, compensation, and incentives change as well.
Yeah. A lot of people that I know, being millennials, it is work is such a central identity. Like you said, they get so much purpose and value of it. But also, we talked about this a little bit earlier. Work-life balance is such a key concern. And so it's not just, pay relative to hours and things like that. There's this other kind of like integration that I think millennials are really concerned about that maybe previous generations weren't as concerned about. Was that a fair summary?
What do you
100%.
Seriously.
what do you think drives that though? Like I think we've done a lot of talking and we've done a lot of research on that the idea of work life balance kind of sort of arising in the Gen Xer time period, really being carried on by millennial. But as you said, there's so much value in their identity in the millennial generation. Like how how do you meld those two ideas together?
Mm. Yeah, James, what would you
I
say to
think,
that?
yeah, I think part of it's listening. The oldest millennial is somewhere around 45 right now, plus or
Mm,
minus a year or two. And, Gen X, excuse me, didn't really fill in the leadership gap. There's just not enough people to go around. So I
mm.
think the market's kind of evolving where it was going to go anyway. But a big part of that is, people people want to do good work. It's just the same Deloitte study said over 77% of people would consider changing jobs if they're forced to go in person. And with that, I think employers and brands need to be very cognizant of, employment's still sub 4%. It's not going to change anytime soon because you can't print more workers. We kind of need to meet each other somewhere in the middle here. The other thing too is, we're in this really interesting moment of kind of a combination of what feels like economic headwinds, but the stock market keeps breaking records every day. Um, you know, Boomers are retiring, millennials are here, Gen Z is joining. In terms of expectations, there's a lot of linkage between millennials and Gen Z too. Definitely not the same. Gen Z is much smaller and does have a different set of wants and wishes. But in terms of work-life balance, I mean, the biggest priority for all these different generations is paying the bills, having that base set of living. But once those basic needs are met, they're really looking for work-life balance. Travel is extremely high on the list of priorities, and the employers that reapproach compensation packages, as well as just kind of this total rewards concept that we seem to be evolving into. Those are really going to be the winners of the next decade.
Mm. I love that. I love that you brought in travel in relation to work-life balance because there is so much of that where the reason that younger generations, younger workers want that work-life balance is to travel. They want experiences is one of the big components. And so a lot of employers over the last, 10 years, even maybe 20, 30 years since the war for talent came out, it was all about how do you attract this labor shortage that we have. So how do you attract this high talent, this really talented group of folks to your organization? One of those is work life balance. One of those is pay. One of those is great benefits. A part of that could be, like we talked about, like perks, wellness, things like that. But travel can be this really interesting way to do that because you get to match the experience and the expectations that employees want with a non cash incentive that an employer could offer as part of their total comp.
And what's interesting too is the non-cash incentives are kind of going the way of the corner office, and that it's not really a thing anymore.
Mm,
I know all of us are in a remote situation. Um, what do I have to show off behind me, right? Like I can hang a couple things on the wall, but that at the end of the day is really not a strong lever, at least for me personally. There was a SHRM study, pardon me for getting the year, it was within the last 5, that asked people how do they want to receive encouragement. One of the top ways was, just words of affirmation or a positive
mm,
note from their manager. Gifts was actually the lowest at 6%, I believe.
mm,
And people just don't want stuff. Same thing with, especially millennial Gen Z. So this is where we're kind of backing up into, how do I encourage someone? Yes, cash is still king. Um, but you know, bonuses usually go one of 3 ways: bills, savings, or, mattress slash other. It, it's quickly forgotten. And especially at least in North America, it's not the culture to brag about how much you got. In a way that, I send Ian or you, Brandon, on a trip, you're going to be posting about it on, Facebook, Snapstagram, or, you get together with the family friends and, you're just standing by the grill talking. Well, hey, we just got back from wherever. And, actually it was crazy, but my employer, blah, 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 my employer is part of that story now. So not only is it incredibly powerful for that relationship between the employer and the employee, but it's also a big potential opportunity or win for employer brand, because you're getting user generated content, whether it's shared on the corporate intranet, which we do internally all the time, as well as the broader world, especially for the these bigger consumer brands. Like think about the power that has. You make it we It feels like every day we're hearing about, XYZ, company made this big, social media flub or someone did something goofy. Well, there's also a pause here, and especially travel, with just the virality that content actually provides. Um, it's a huge opportunity to be part of the story.
Yeah, I just saw,
So
I had some friends on Instagram that are doing this year of travel. I don't know how
Mhm.
they're pulling it off, but they're traveling all over. But like the like magnetic energy that people have around their account because they're just so fascinated on where they're going and why, and there's so many questions. And so, yeah, I love that point about employer brand. Not only like the employee has that connection to the brand, but also you turn employees into like little influencers, all marketing the brand because they're all going to talk about that. Yeah, I think it's a great point.
And the other thing too is like if we're looking at the economics of this, the average trip sits somewhere between 1,500 to 3,000. And if we're looking at normal American compensation, that's a percentage of a percentage compared to overall total comp versus, if I give you a $3,000 spot bonus, like I'm sure most people would appreciate it, but it doesn't have the same cachet or, you know, lifespan, excuse me, half life as what you'd expect with, you know, a trip. Like I still remember travel, whether it's, Facebook memory or, just even a conversation that from 15 years ago. The other thing too is, kind of the tapestry of, when Switchfly started going down this path in 22, it was pretty defined, we're employee rewards, we're perks, we're wellness. And it feels like, at least for me, last year or two, we've really seen a consolidation of the marketplace to be more of just this overall employee experience. where, you have everything from here's an app where you can do yoga and your work pays for it to the gym membership to pet insurance and now experiential rewards. And I think it's really interesting to see who's doing what. Switchfly has over 10 million people on platform right now in terms of like literal travelers or potential travelers. And we're really seeing a lot of adoption around like this idea of multi-campus, but I want to have a consistent culture. How do we have, across different either peer groups or business units, how do we have a similar experience, but also let the employee be the, kind of hero of their own story? There's also been a lot of market change where there's been a couple more like concierge type services where it's heavily dependent on where you sit or, localization. And the market continually seems to be evolving towards a much more Android approach of, we want one system where, our people can choose to do what they want when they want. And it dovetails super nicely with a lot of different organizations and, rule sets, excuse me, whether they shut down for, 2 weeks during the holidays or have a summer month and or multiple companies where, for a certain time window, usually around the summer, they just stop asking their employees where they're going to be working from and just say, go wherever makes you happy. And whether you call it there's a lot of synergies here that can make the work experience that we have um completely different than that of our parents or previous.
So yeah, and actually that was a pretty good segue into my question of how to manage all of this. Like uh some companies out there will have pre-existing HR tech and reward systems. Some will have never heard of HR tech, right? Like what is
Yeah,
that? How is it managed? What kind of avenues are there for people to offer travel to their employees?
for sure. There's a couple different strata here, specifically around travel or experiential gifting, let's call it. The first is, under 500 employees, it's kind of a bit of a wild west, or crapshoot. Some, it's as simple as, you talk to Susie in the accounting department and there's either a check cut or some kind of expense where, you just turn in a receipt at the end of the trip and it's taken care of. You get the credit card points, simple. And that's something where, if you only are doing these at like a 5-year anniversary or, in a limited use case, like, yeah, it doesn't make any sense to onboard an entire platform when it's, you know, an additional line in accounting record somewhere. But if you're a larger organization or you have more complex needs where it's not as simple as, 5 years, $3,000, that's where, you're just kind of asking for trouble. The other thing related to that too is, a smaller company, there can definitely be kind of just these, let's call them make goods, where, if someone gets into a hiccup and, there's a slight cost overrun, there could be just a quick exchange of information. Because when's the last time any of us have been on a trip that didn't have a delay or some kind of fun little side quest pop up? Um, but, um, really, if you're a larger brand, um, you know, I would strongly, strongly recommend offloading that liability and just complexity, to experts. And that, certain brands, they want to go all in on experiential rewards and Switchfly has a solution for that. Others want, kind of a soup to nuts, of, we want to let our employees pick. Do they want, a branded piece of clothing? Do they want, a lawnmower, or are they looking for, a subsidized hotel stay to go visit grandma over birthday holidays, whatever. So, really it depends what you're looking for first. Well, excuse me. Let me back up. It depends on company size. There's a little bit of region, if you're located somewhere, a little more remote, not in the US, but, thinking more like if you're in New Guinea, might be a little different, um, list of options there. But, outside of that, it really depends. What are you looking for? Are you looking for, this kind of total rewards marketplace that has, everything to offer? We have several partners there that, we can recommend or, just a search and you can quickly name, a list of solutions there. If you're looking for experiential rewards though, specifically, which consistently, test highly. And, we're passionate about this stuff for a reason. The mental health statistics alone, really do make one start to think like, is this something that, could even help offset like healthcare costs? To, employee motivation, to worker output, all go up when people have that work-life balance. You're able to expand your employer brand. I mean, if y'all don't cut me off, I'm just going to keep rambling here. But, at the end of the day, there's a reason that experiential rewards, aren't just a thing that, one or two companies like a Google or a Meta, excuse me, Alphabet or Meta, I'm dating myself here, offer. And why we're seeing kind of this, democratization of offerings just across, everything.
So it sounds like kind of the name of the game is just flexibility across the board, right? And how people work and what you offer them and just bringing in avenues for flexibility. Where's the ROI for the employer in offering employee rewards, travel and employee rewards?
So what I'm really hearing is, why as an employer would I want to pay for my employees to go on vacation? Uh, sorry to I know I translate, sometimes, but, really it's two or three things. One, do you value your employees? And I mean that not in the, corporate sense, like, are they safe? Are they, compensated? But how are you, helping the total person? The kind of it's unfortunate that, I'm going to work at this company for 40 years and then retire with this great pension. It's kind of something that seems to be, quickly slipping away, or, more of a artifact. But, there's definitely an opportunity here to not only increase employee retention, but also increase worker productivity, worker satisfaction. And, you know, all things equal, one of the strongest ways to accomplish your corporate goals is just keep people happy. Employers have like 1,000 different KPIs, and I don't know how many HR presentations I've sat through where, these are the top five, and, the next person has a completely different data set. But, one of the simplest, answers I've ever heard is keep your people happy. When you solve for everything else, it's amazing how closely related that is to even performance in the market. And one of the biggest ways to have satisfaction in your career is to have work-life balance, and, let Ian be Ian, or let Ian do whatever makes Ian happy, provided it falls in the boundaries of corporate policies and the law. But, not to pick on you or, anyone else, but, really, what are we doing to, take care of our people? And once you solve for that, they generally want to return the favor, especially with that north of 60% stat. This is a huge part of people's identities. The employers take an equal role in that relationship, and, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, I think there, in my experience, there's been a lot of confusion about the term employee experience. I mean, what does that look like? What does that mean? But I like that you kind of simplified it in that way, that it's like, just keep people happy. And one thing that makes people happy is travel. I mean, it can be as simple as that. And I think there's a lot of merit in that, because to your point, people don't want more stuff, and there's a lot of places out there where you can get stuff, and sometimes a branded jacket is nice. I mean, Ian's got one on. Sometimes, yeah, you like those things. You like water bottles. You like, all the hats and things like that. But for something to really capture, like, hey, I've been working here for years. I'm like dedicating, a third of my life, of my waking hours, half my waking hours, to serving this brand, and I want to like have a shared experience with them, and to feel like appreciated and recognized, and feel like I'm doing a good job, and to receive that in the form of travel is like really, really powerful. I've seen it in my life. I've seen it in my coworkers' lives at times, and it's neat. It's a very unique way to do that, to give them a good experience.
It puts the onus sort of on the employee rather than me having to think up of stuff to give, or just like James said, just be kind of generic gift card or cash bonus or whatever. Um,
Mhm.
it might get a little more buy-in from the employee because they're a little more engaged in the process. picking their own reward, so to speak, of where they're going or what they're going to be doing. Um, that might be another helpful way to kind of increase that engagement.
Yeah, but it's not just vacations too. I think that was an important point that James was making, that like sometimes to use a travel to go visit, grandma, on the other side of the country that I otherwise really wouldn't be able to go get to see her. That kind of idea is really great because it's not like a vacation. It's like it's a memory. It's a bond with their family. Like there's just so many ways that an employee could use travel if they had that opportunity to create an experience that's really unique to them and not just like a trip to Paris, which I love Paris. Paris is great. But, to have something that's really unique to what's meaningful to them, I think is really cool.
And the other thing I'll say, or just kind of like a last thought on that is, it doesn't have to be a trip to, Lima, Peru or, Bora Bora. We can, you know, Switchfly especially, we have plenty of local events where, maybe someone has a young family and they don't want to deal with the hassle of having a 1.5-year-old on a 2-hour flight. I mean, there's just local activities if you want to do, something super low key. You can go do a food tour, you can go, check out the haunted cemetery down the street. It's all dependent on where you are, obviously. Probably not a lot of reef diving in, northern Minnesota in December. But,
Mhm.
outside of just the obvious, the employee gets to pick what they do. And, really that's part of it too, is just the aspirational or the wanderlust of looking forward to the trip. I know we all know a nervous traveler too, but, at the end of the day, half literally half the benefit from a mental health standpoint is having something to look forward to or having those milestones. So, whether it's an activity down the street or, a trip halfway around the world, um, we're really geared to let people be the hero of their own story here. And I think that's pretty cool too, that the employer is saying, hey, Brandon, you've killed it this year, happy anniversary. Or, we just want to give back to our employees because it was a great year. And that means you get to, maybe you get some extra DTO, it's just an incentive to use DTO because that's another conversation, right? This whole unlimited PTO paradox of I give you potentially more time off and people take less. I know even internally, there's always a couple people who are super dedicated and you have to be like, can you not show up next week? Like you've been working 8 straight months and you need to take a couple days off just to, go be Ian or go be Brandon. Um, and this is another lever there too. Like there's just so many synergies to just empowering people to, get away. And again, the employer gets to take the lion's share of the credit there. Not only because usually there's some kind of subsidy or, um, but let's just be honest, the employer is helping pay for vacation, or an experience, excuse me. But, like the instead of just being this day trading kind of like spot, like here's a gift card to go get DoorDash for a night. This is something that's going to have a much longer half life and just be a much more rewarding experience. And I pardon the pun, please pardon the pun for reward, etc. But it really is just that.
So we've been talking, a lot that travel's really important. Employees love to travel. What's a trip that's been standing out in your memory as you think about, like, you've had this great experience, very memorable. It could be very small. I mean, it could be either, like I said, a trip, to visit grandma. It could have been, like you're saying, like a local event, or it could have been a big trip to Paris or some grand vacation. What's
Yeah, I
something
always want
that
Paris.
created that memory? Man, I tell you, I love Paris. I'm a huge fan.
No, your coffee cup says Netherlands.
Oh, that is true. I've never even been. Um, no, but yeah, what's something that really stands out to you guys? It's like, it just captured this, I don't know, this memory for you,
I got I got one. So I grew up 4 hours away from the Grand Canyon and never went. Never saw
oh,
it.
no.
Last Christmas though, went out to see my parents who recently moved to the Phoenix area, and me and my kids and my wife, and we decided to take a day trip up, spend the night in Flagstaff and go see the Grand Canyon. And it's one of those things that you've seen a million times on TV and postcards and everything else, and there really is nothing like it. Like, you can see it all you want on TV, but seeing it in person is just it's unreal. It's like being on a different
Mm.
planet, of just the experience of it. So, and it was just one of those, like, when we had time as a kid to go somewhere, we wanted to go somewhere. We didn't want to go 4 hours up the road. And but taking the time to like go do that this last Christmas was just it was incredible. Had a great time.
Mm. I've flown over the Grand Canyon a couple of times going to California, from Texas, and, I've seen it, and it's just massive, but I've never seen it up close, and I've always wanted to because it looks
It,
just
it
incredible.
is unbelievable. Like, just the grandness of it.
Mm, mm. Well, I have to say Paris. I've been to Europe several times. I love to travel all over, but there's just something. It's where I honeymoon. It's where my wife and I love to go. We've been there 3 or 4 times. But I love it because it teaches so much about history. Ian, I know you're a history buff, but when I get there, I have said so many times that I'm like, of course people revolted in the 18th century. Like, of
Yeah.
course they did. Look at these palaces; they're insane. So just seeing things like that, it gives so much color and perspective to history and people that have gone before us. So I love things like that.
Yeah, it's funny, I apparently have the same kind of or the same time frame for both of our stories, but Switchfly actually shuts down between Christmas and New Year's, so the
Mm.
employees can, rest, recharge. Talking about these, kind of non-monetary type rewards. And for us, my wife and I, we went to Milwaukee, my hometown, stayed in one of the top 10, get what they call it, historic hotels. There, had Christmas in the hotel with my family, got adjoining rooms, had a suite set up. So, we had our hotel tree, did a gift exchange there. And it was just kind of a cool, fun, out of the box holiday for us. But, having a couple extra days, not really having to rush it where, oh shoot, we're going to be, grandma's for 2 hours. Then we have to be, it's just, let's go slow. There's plenty of space. Everyone can kind of do their own thing, before and after. So, we weren't on top of each other and shoot, even the dogs could come. So, just a super cool time, nothing particularly like transformative about the location. I mean, very cool hotel. Strongly recommend the Pfister if anyone's ever passing through Milwaukee. But it's one of those things. It's like, let's try it, let's do it, and it seems to be turning into a new tradition. So yeah, and the
Cool.
best part was didn't really have to stress because I already had the time off, and ever like I knew that I didn't have to worry about anything, going bonk in the night,
I love that. That's
except for
such
the
a
ghosts that are in the
special.
hotel.
No, it's such a special moment. Like, just there was nothing to worry about, and everybody was together, and you didn't have to rush. I mean, that's such
We're
a
cooked.
cool way to do that. Yeah, that's important. I love
The other
that.
the other
That's
trick is
cool.
hotel lounges, but that's a different episode.
Man, I could talk about some lounges. Airport lounges are my favorite. All right, well, gentlemen, this has been super helpful. Thank you. I know we mentioned at the beginning employee experience, total rewards, perks, wellness benefits. There's so much that we could probably talk about for hours, but travel, being in that space is really unique and very cool. So I'm excited to get some thoughts on that. And
Hey,
with that, we will wrap episode 5. Thank you so
awesome.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take
All
care.
right, we'll see you.